welcome back to the Pulse. Now, former Energy Minister Boakye Agyarko has described in a Joy News exclusive interview, has actually disclosed that he will be running for president. Now, the governing New Patriotic Party will soon commence the search for a successor to President Akufo-Addo, whose task will be to lead the party as its flag bearer in the 2024 elections. Even before that search begins, Boakye Agyarko says he will be the best bet for the New Patriotic Party in the next elections in 2024. The former government appointee was also dismissing claims in that interview that he is not in good terms with the president. It's been a while. You've been under the radar. Is that a fair description of what's happening?
Keeping under the radar.
What's been keeping you away, really?
Minding my own business, but doing a lot of things. A lot of family issues, a lot of traveling around, a lot of talking to party people, involving myself in a lot of the party activities. So,
I see that you're still passionate about the New Patriotic Party.
That is my inheritance. The tradition is my inheritance. My own father started politics in 1943. And graduated into the NLM, the UP, and then had to go into exile under Nkrumah for 7 years. He came back, was in the Progress Party and the Popular Front Party, even though at that stage, age had caught up with him and therefore was not very active. Nonetheless, that was his tradition. And he leaves it to us as our inheritance. And if you are not passionate about your inheritance, you are the force that will destroy that inheritance. So yes, I'm passionate about that tradition, but for a purpose, to the service of my country.
We'll talk about that service in detail, but first of all, I'm sure that you've been monitoring the reorganization process of the New Patriotic Party. It started this year. A lot of rancor at the base when the reorganization process started. We've seen some changes in leadership at various fronts, and we're now faced, and I mean you as the New Patriotic Party, are now faced with the opportunity of electing your national leadership in terms of the executives, which is happening in a few days from
next month. Few weeks
from now, it's fair to say that. What's your impression of the reorganization process itself?
Well, this is a ritual we go through every 4 years. And as I wrote in the graphic a while back, it is a ritual that always has its rancor because of the competitiveness of it and because of the strategic imputations people make for their future political careers. So it is unfortunate but necessary part of the arrangement. I cannot claim to be happy when things like that happen. We've gone through it many times, and we ought to, by this time, have nailed down the propositions and the processes much better. I hope it is advised to us that going forward we can do better and must do better. Here we are, we've gone through the polling station exercises, we've gone through the electoral area coordinator, we've gone through constituency, regional, and here we are, national, to elect the 17 men and women who will lead the national party. I pray and hope that decency, fair play, decorum would be the hallmark. Because you see, at the end of the day, the nation is watching us. The nation is watching whether we will live up to our credo or whether we will fail in that matter. Whether we will live up to that credo and enhance our image as a national political party, or whether we will fail and damage the corporate brand and image. That is the proposition before us. And all of us must be cognizant of that and say that, yeah, we will stand up and be counted so that the future of this party will be bright, because then we have become attractive to the majority of the nation.
So what you're saying is the NPP is not as attractive as...
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we can be more than what we are. And all organisms must grow, must be better. When we started this party, we were not where we are now. But our conduct and our performance must keep on enhancing the image of the party. Anything that detracts from us and what we stand for damage the corporate image.
Oh no, but I'll tell you about a trend that many within your party believe is detracting you from that game and ultimate goal that you have, which has got to do with the cracks and divisions along some lines of persons who are seeking to ultimately fill in the slot after the president is no longer taking his turn as the leader of the NPP, the flag bearer. And I'm sure that you've heard some of these reports that people are aligning on grounds of the Alan Baumia camp. Your name has also come up anyway. Are you first of all in the race, standing and making that firm decision that, well, I want to lead my political party?
Absolutely.
Going into the future?
Absolutely.
You're running for president?
Yes.
Why?
Zeal for service of my country and party. Zeal for service of my country and party.
How determined are you to achieve that target?
Absolutely. This is not a matter you trifle with, right? It must attract your full commitment, right? Drink deep or touch not. So I'm not going to trifle and play around and then say, well, no. I'm committed to it, and I will do the best I can as God makes me able to achieve it.
And what you are in for will definitely open you up for some assessment in terms of what it is that you've done in the past in your service, public service and other opportunities that you've served in or capacities that you've served in the past. One of them that comes to light obviously would be your tenure as the Minister for Energy. You still insist that your integrity is intact regardless of the circumstances surrounding your resignation. Don't you feel that that could be but
the thing is,
we're
look,
to assess your performance.
What politician or public servant hasn't been asked to leave a position? What is the impugning of integrity? President said, I gave you the job, I want you to give my job back to me. End of story.
Was it as simple as that?
Yes. Has anybody accused me of stealing money? Have you heard anything like that? I'm asking.
Well, that hasn't come up, but of course we don't know the exact circumstances surrounding.
Well, if you don't know, then
the opportunity is here to ask you.
No, if you don't know, then let's not get hypothetical and speculative, right? He who alleges must prove. If you are inquisitive enough and want to find out, you ask the president. Why did you sack him? He may have other reasons, right, that I may or may not not know. So you ask the authoritative decision maker as to why he took a certain decision.
You have your own judgment about that situation.
My judgment is unimportant. Whether I agree or not, that is his. That decision is his to make, unfettered.
I guess you may not be necessarily bothered about what's happening in terms of your decision to resign, but many argue that it will definitely come up. You have to work with the same class of people or group of people if indeed you want to succeed as the presidential candidate. Even if you get to win, these are the same elements that you'll be dealing with. For instance, it's been alleged that you're not in good terms with the president.
Who alleges?
When was the last time you spoke to the president?
Do you have to speak to somebody, or the fact that you are not speaking to somebody means you're on bad terms with the president?
But this is supposed to be your good friend, someone you've worked with on a project to win political power. Boakye Agyarko, when was the last time you spoke to the president?
Maybe a year ago.
That clearly shows that something is not right.
No, that doesn't mean anything. You see, to impugn hatred or something amiss because somebody hasn't spoken to somebody, I think it's ridiculous. Right? My best friend in the world is called Godwin Boateng. He lives in the US. We haven't spoken for 2 years. But deep down in our hearts, we know what bonds us. I haven't spoken to Gordon in 2 years. And if we should meet today, it will be like we've never missed a step. So that is trifle. Right?
But working relationship is key, you agree? These are your former colleagues, these are persons you served with in government. At least you should maintain some cordial relations with them.
I do have cordial relations with a lot of people in the party.
Including the president?
What is cordial relation? When we meet, we are very decent and civil with each other. Right? Like most of my colleagues. Naturally, I'm a hermit. Right? So if I haven't spoken to somebody, you cannot impugn discord or hatred. I think you'll be driving the ball too far. Yes, we are in a political party. As Darocha used to say, you don't have to be friends to be in the same political party. You have to have the same common objective of service. Once you have that, fair, you are done. Right? You don't have to be friends.
Okay. So let's talk about the objectives now. The NPP promised to deliver a number of things to the people of Ghana, having assessed your own political party over that period, be it 4, 6, moving into the 8-year term. Your party says you're likely to break the 8. I mean, that's the target that you're setting for yourselves. Looking at your performance now, if indeed you become the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, how would you convince the people of Ghana that indeed the NPP deserves another term?
On our record of achievement, all the way back from Kufuor to now, I will dare say that our tradition and its ideology represents the best options for this country. We are the safest pair of hands to handle and manage the affairs of this country. And it's been proven time again. That does not mean that everything is honky-dory. That does not mean that we get everything right. Right? But any time the NPP is in power or has been in power, our fortunes have been brighter.
It's not exactly the same today as we speak, isn't it?
It is. Look, the difficulties the world and we are going through are part of the natural ups and downs that every human being or every country will and must go through. Yes, now things are difficult. And we admit that, and must admit that. But we must array ourselves in a formation that presents and fashions out a credible solution for our upliftment. To me, that is more important, right? Your assessment today may be very different from your assessment next year as things begin to work through.
So you believe it's more about external factors, largely?
Look, Ghana is a small, open economy. 80% of our GDP is impacted that way. We are not one of the big boys who can insulate ourselves against many of the things. That does not mean we should lay supine and be rolled over. But nilly-willy, let it be said that there are a lot of things out of our hands, out of our control, that we wish weren't so. Just a few days ago, the Feds increased their base rate by 0.75. You know what that means? It means that all capital is now going to look in terms of asset values and move to the US. And when they are moving to the US, weak countries like ours will suffer the consequences of diminution and also increases in, if we have to pari passu increase in rates, and also the currency depreciation.
I'm glad that I'm having this conversation with you because that's your background. You have quite an extensive understanding of what's happening around the world, even within our country. You've heard the argument, for instance, from the minority side. They've argued that it's about profligacy within government, the fact that government is not being prudent with state resources. Of late, the minority has criticized government of pouring funds, which is in dire need for development and other stuff into, for instance, projects such as the National Cathedral. The president has also been taking on for his expensive travels, for instance. These are some of the expenditure areas that minority believes we could work on in terms of tackling the challenges and plugging the loopholes. Do you think that they're justified in some of these demands?
It's a narrow-minded view. Because you see, if I were to sit here with you and show you the macroeconometric model of the Ghanaian economy, the various variables and their interplay on how the economy, Y variable, behaves, the coefficients of the things they are talking about will be insignificant.
Presidential travel doesn't matter?
It does in a sense, particularly of the optics. So the president's travel is how much? That it will derail a $66 billion economy? I'm not saying those expenditures are not important. But let us focus on the big things, right? That turn this economy. For instance, I was very dismayed at the hula baloo over e-levy. And I'm sitting there and I said, guys, have you looked at your budget recently? We have a budget deficit close to 48 billion cedis. And we are haggling to death over 7 billion. Now let's say that, okay, granted, we give you the 7 billion. You still have a deficit of 41 billion. What are you going to, we are now going to do a Y levy and a Z levy to close the 41. That's not the argument. That's not where the problem is. The problem is with the flawed architecture of our national budgets. How we be it that since 1961 to date, there's been only 3 or 4 years where we have had budget surpluses. Consistently, we are in deficit. Because we are playing games, smokes and mirrors.
I'll take your solution to the Ghanaian economy shortly. Just before I do that, Some have taken on the finance minister. They believe that it's about prudent economic management as well, and that the economic management team, we've heard the vice president mention the name, and obviously your name has come up at some point. It's no longer the case now, but you've heard about the names. The ultimate backstops with the finance minister, as many have argued. The minority is calling for his head. The fact that the president must dismiss him. Are you impressed with his work?
That's their point of view.
But are you impressed with the work of the economic management team?
Look,
you've been part.
I have sat in economic management team meetings, and I've seen the enormity of the difficulties we face. Look, this country faces huge problems. Somehow, we've been able to opiate ourselves and minimize these problems, and even attempted to dismiss as if they were minuscule and not important. We have opiated ourselves to minimizing the problems that have faced this country for 30, 40 years. We better wake up, right? And see the development of this country as a joint collective effort requiring the contribution of each and every one of us. Otherwise, if we place it on the heads of one person or two persons, we'll be joking.
I guess that's coming up because we've heard the refrain. The NPP has the men. You've heard that.
I have.
You've heard that before.
I have. And I will not shy away from it. Because I know the talent and the qualities in the NPP. I will not shy away from it. Whether all the talent are getting the opportunity to play the necessary roles is another matter. I sat with an MP yesterday for about 4 hours. And I was blown away. Depth of knowledge, capacity, his intensity, all of that.
Definitely, you can be on the lookout for that. We'll share that full interview on all of our platforms for you to have a retake or rewatch.